Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. This week I thought we would do a fun summer meadow with some beautiful flowers, maybe a little distant mountain and some trees, but we're going to focus on some foreground flowers today. Be sure to check the description below for the paint list if you'd like to paint along, and let's jump right into it. I have my standard 18 by 24 inch canvas up here that I've prepped with a thin, even coat of liquid white, and it's ready to go. To start this painting, I'm going to use a 1-inch brush and go heavily into the Indian yellow. We're just going to put a little dance of sun kind of as it meets the horizon. The sun is going to be behind us. I'm just going to soften this color into the sky. The sun is going to be kind of off to our left, off our left shoulder. So all the flowers that we're going to be painting today will be facing the sun. And we're just kind of looking out into the distance, catching all these fun colors in the sky. Now we're painting it really vibrant, and then we're going to soften it down. So don't worry if this looks kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? We are painting a nice, hopefully a nice soft sky today, but let's get this going with our colors. Putting a little bit of a border around this gold. Just is going to help us later get into a little bit of crimson, maybe even. Man, I do this so often as I just get so excited I forget to put the palette back up. Oh, first take again today, thank you. Alizarin crimson and bright red now. We just started with Indian yellow down here, faded into a little bit of bright red, and now we're dipping our toe into the alizarin crimson. Just seeing how those two like each other on the brush. I like those two together, they make kind of a bright red. But the alizarin crimson just tones down the bright red just a tiny bit, you know, so they balance each other out, and I like them a lot together. We're going to have some lavender up here, so we don't need to go too crazy. We do still want to just get some of this paint onto the canvas. Maybe something like this. Just tickle it in. And down below, same thing. A little crimson, a little bright red. Much more crimson over here. It's going to be our dark side. The light is over on this left-hand side. Let's get crazy. Alizarin crimson, phthalo blue. Just on the same dirty brush that we were already working with, let those two meet. Even with some of that bright red. Bright red, alizarin crimson, phthalo blue. That's dark. Let's just get some of this to soften together. Less over here. Darker over here. Remember to always match it below. And let's just get really wild. dark all the way down here. Let's just put it in now and make it easier for us later, because it'll give this some time to kind of set in a little bit. I'm running low of my liquid white, and I obviously missed a spot here, so just rolling with it. Okay, I'm gonna pick up more crimson and bright red. Slightly brighter on this side, but still dark. Fading up. Same dirty brush that we started with. You can just start bringing some of these together, depending on how much paint you still have on your brush. If you've gotten rid of most of it, this works really well. Just to kind of bring them all together. Be sure to take small steps. Don't want to be bringing a bunch of dark into a light area that you've just prepared. But right here, we can just soften, bring those together right there. Move them around. All right, I'm going to pick up a nice, clean 2-inch brush, and I'm going to use that and soften our golden area. Just bring all this nice and softly together. Just into a little bit of a haze. Working down into the crimson right now. Just moving up and down to soften this line. Okay, I'm looking at my brush just to double check. I have some crimson here and still a little bit of gold on the top. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start blending this area here. We just don't want to put all of our dark into our light area if we still have it working for us on the brush. Softening that line in between. A nice tight X stroke works, and then you can go right over the top, lightly. See, now we still have some yellow here and red up here, but we can just start moving up onto the canvas and continue to blend. But we just have to remember, now that we're getting up into this lavender, never go back into your gold unless you clean off your brush. Very important. You'll be very upset. Just work one stage at a time. If you want to leave this more choppy and cloudy, you can totally do that. I just wanted this to be kind of soft today in the sky. All right, from here, I want to add just a touch of blue up into this top bit of the sky, just to really make it feel like it's got some good depth in the sky. Just mixing up a blue with a little bit of titanium white, just to make that pop. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of our lavender. There we go. And right up here, I'm just going to dance in a tiny bit of this blue into our sky, as if it's just popping through some misty clouds up here. Over here, just a touch darker. Something like that maybe, and then we'll blend it. Yeah, just a little touch. All right, let's dance in a couple little pops of clouds, just some misty little things, a little Indian yellow and bright red, kind of make a light peach. And then we're going to lighten that with titanium white until we get it to a color that we like, which that one just ended up working out. Lucky. Just going to pop in a couple, and then we just brush them down a touch. Soften it. Touch of Indian or yellow ochre with the Indian yellow and bright red. A little more bright red. Maybe something like that, and then just brush it out. Soften it, and it'll just kind of disappear. I want to do just a touch more. Alizarin crimson, bright red. Going for a bright pink. Just something fun, and then we'll just soften it back a little bit. Who knows? All right, now I really wanted to put in a moon out here, just as if it's rising above the horizon, and the sun is shining on it from across the way. I'm just using titanium white to put in a little circle. Then I'm going to scrape it off with a clean palette knife. Make sure it's clean, that's super important. Sometimes you have little surprises on there, and then you're not very happy. Just push that back. It kind of lost its roundness, so there we go. I like that better. By just barely touching on it, you can kind of get some of the paint to blend, and you get some of the color from the background to just soften with it, so it's not straight white. Works pretty well. Now we'll take a tiny bit of titanium white on the brush, the fan brush that we were working with, and just right around the moon, we're just going to tap in a couple extra details, just barely glistening on these clouds, just barely, and then soften it back. Just wanted to add a little Tiny bit of an ambiance there. Love it. Okay, now let's build a little mountain. If you look down at my palette here in the corner of your screen, you can see that there's a lot of lines from when I came through with a knife and was trying to scrape off the paint. That happens when you have paint that has dried on your knife. So you need to go in and clean that off. See how it's a little bit better here? On the back of the knife, you can take another knife and just scrape off whatever's on there and get rid of anything that's going to be causing interference. Do it on both sides. Wipe it off. And it's pretty much as good as new. Much better there. So clean off your knives, or clean them off when you need them, but yeah, I just do it whenever I need it. Okay, we're gonna build a little mountain here. It's gonna be kind of up in the sun and then down in the shadows below. So for the sun area, let's grab some titanium white, alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, just our normal lavender color that we were kind of working with before, a little bit more crimson and some bright red. To that, I just want to grab a tiny bit of dark sienna and we'll grab some more titanium white. Just marble that. Now we've got a nice marbled lavender. Cut off a little roll, maybe a medium-sized roll, and then we're going to build our mountain out here. I was kind of still imagining that we were maybe still out in Colorado and the Rocky Mountains are out in our distance here. We'll see if it ends up feeling like it in the end. I'm combining a few ideas in my mind, so we'll just see. Here is going to be kind of our outline for the mountain today. It's very far out in the distance. Let's see, and we're doing 3 peaks, I think. Whoa, what am I doing? There we go, 1. And 3. And this one's just gonna kind of wander off. Just a touch more. I want to make this one just a tiny bit bigger so we can just kind of scrape some of that paint down and bring them into the size that we want to do. Let's pick up our 2-inch brush and soften this. Just getting rid of some of that paint down on the bottom of the canvas, and then we can come back up into the top. All right. Now, our light is coming from behind us, but it is going to be a little bit more to the left-hand side. So let's mix up our highlight. Pick up my clean knife that I just spent time cleaning. Titanium white, dark sienna, bright red, touch of gold, just marble all of that together, even grab a tiny bit of the mountain mixture, whatever. Just start with some fun, bright colors and have a blast. And then you can always come back in, which I usually do, and put on an extra pop. But it helps to marble up the paint just to give it more of a realistic look. And maybe this one's, he's kind of just dancing in the background over here. And this one's gonna be coming kind of out in front, just like that. A little more over here. Now, I want to pull some of this highlight just into the background, and you can just shove this part of the knife into it and then pull it down. All right, now we're going to mix up a little bit of a shadow color by just grabbing our mountain mixture, titanium white, and some blue. We're going to grab just a touch of Van Dyke brown to that. Touch more marble of the titanium white, not too much. I just want to make it stand out a tiny bit more. We can always come back and soften it if we need to. I'll just add a touch over here just to kind of give it some idea of something happening over there. And I'm just going to soften this paint back a little bit here. Tap if you need to. Just lift it up, push it back. Now we're really going to make that pop with some titanium white and Indian yellow, touch of yellow ochre, nice gold color right on the tops. Just pull that down and let it grab where it wants to be. Just to about there. Oh, let's not forget this one here. Something like that. Now, We're going to build another little mountain in front of this one. We can just use that. Let's add more blue now. Grab all of our crimson and reds. I want this to be a nice dark blue. Pick up some browns. And let's just kind of throw something in here. Something like that, who knows? We'll just tap out the base. This is going to be kind of more in the shadows. So let's just mix up a nice gray, titanium white, mountain mixture, Van Dyke brown. A little bit more Van Dyke brown. Grab a touch of midnight black and just marble those in there. And we'll grab off a little roll of that and see what we can create. Maybe a little more titanium white. And then let's mix up kind of a shadowy color, more blue, brown and black. We can maybe add some Van Dyke brown and bright red to our other color. Maybe this will work out. You kind of just pull some of that back into the opposite direction. Just putting out some sort of foothills that are just sort of in the shadows behind our next area that we're going to have over here, some trees. Just grab a touch more titanium white into our shadow color. Now we have a few dimensions of colors out here really working for us. Now we can grab just a touch of our really bright medium tone, I guess, highlight. This was our first highlight color from over here. And let's just pick out a couple of ridges that could be just bouncing off in the light over here. Just barely. we've got just some pops of color. Just soften that all back. Kind of up and back. Now that we've kind of set our background up here, let's start with some fun trees. Gonna get my fan brush and load it up with just this mountain color, whatever. Grab some green into it. And I want just a tiny bit more titanium white to it. Just a touch. Right out here, we're gonna start, let's do a little bit more, maybe a touch of Indian yellow. I just want it to be a light green, kind of as it's being touched a little bit by the sun, perhaps. Let's try this. That works. Just right out here in the distance. Maybe let's grab more Indian yellow, titanium white. Green. Just touch on a couple of these and lighten them. Just give it a little pop. Just got a little bit of brush wash too. All right, now we've got them kind of colored. We will see, we get our blending brush in here and just tap out the base. Keep it facing in the up direction. Just getting rid of some of the paint. Now I'm going to lift straight up and soften it. Now, let's do another layer on top. This one's darker. Alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, sap green. Nice and dark. And we're going to start putting in some more trees. If you wiggle your brush through the paint as you pull down, you'll be able to get your brush into a really nice fine point. Pretty effective. Practice that. Let's go. Maybe down. And then maybe there's another hill that kind of comes up this way. And the shadows over here. just want to make sure that we kind of have this darkened so that there's not any huge holes in here. Then it just doesn't look right. So we kind of just want to fill this in. It's not straight across. You can always come back in here and just pop them up a little, or put one in like this. Who knows? I don't like that. Maybe like that. Okay. Now I want this to come up, kind of up this way. Kind of fill this in a little. All right, now I'm gonna soften this just a tiny bit right at the bottom, just to give us a little opportunity to create some more depth here. Clean off your brush, clean up the bottom just a touch. Then we can kind of lift up. And you can see we start to pick up some paint because you're dropping it down here. Just clean off the bristles on the bottom down here. And if you have a bunch of it, wipe it off. But usually you're not picking up too much. All right. Now let's pick out a few trees that are really just standing out in the front. Alizarin crimson and sap green. Let's work with just those two for a moment. We still have our muddy color over here we were just using. We can always get some more of that. But I'm going to pick out a couple trees here that are just right up here, nice and tall. I'm just pushing up the bristles, kind of rocking them back and forth. Now I'm coming right into an area where we're going to pick up some of our light color from the background, and when you start to do that, just come back down in here to your paint and reload. No big deal. Now we need to make at the bottom of this just a little bit bigger. For perspective, that was kind of an odd looking tree. Let's try that. Maybe a touch in here. Make them a little stronger. And see, now back here we're going to have just a little bit of depth from this when we blended that out a little bit. Let's do a few more, maybe not so big. Just to about there. Alizarin crimson and sap green. There's just a few in there. And we'll do now let's just pop in some happy little trees out here. Let's do maybe one more out here. And then we can maybe get an idea of how our meadow is going to lay out here. Now we can maybe come back in and plop in a couple more trees. Down here, we're just going to start building in a few dark areas. All right, grab some titanium white and dark sienna, maybe some bright red. Yellow ochre is fun too, and we'll just pop in tree branches. All right, now we can tap in some highlight on these. This is going to be fun. Let's just pick up a little bit of brush wash or whatever you use to thin your paint. I'm just going to work that into my bristles and then pick up some green and yellows. To that, some bright red. And I'm just going to pop this on some of our trees out here, focusing on the left-hand side and the front, since our sun is kind of coming from over here. We're just going to pop on a few highlights. Now let's pick up a little bit of liquid white and then we'll go into our sap green. I want to use this color and really make a few of these branches pop up high. You can just pick out a couple and make them sparkle. Maybe we'll get a few out here too. Just dull that down a little bit. And we can just come back in with our 2-inch brush and soften a few of these. Soften out our little meadow area. These will have some flowers down here, so just kind of tap that and clean it up a little bit. Maybe we can soften a couple of these. Awesome. Now, I'm going to take this lighter color that we have on the brush and set that down for a second. And we'll pop in just a touch more dark, so we can have some more of our shadows pull through here. Okay, now we'll come back with our lights, green and white, whatever you had to put on these highlights out here. We're gonna pop in the start of our meadow back here. Just with the fan brush, push up. And then we can soften some of that with the 2-inch brush. Let's do a little yellow. Nice and medium texture. I'm going to grab a little touch of liquid white and go into my Indian yellow. And maybe we just have a big field right out here of some yellow flowers. A little darker now. Some red, yellow. Back to the yellow. I'm going to get some yellow ochre this time. Yellow ochre and Indian yellow. Now let's pick up some darker now. Let's pick up our 2-inch brush and just soften some of these out just a touch. And then we can come back with our fan brush. Pick up some titanium white and Indian yellow. We'll get some yellow ochre as well, why not? And right out here we'll just tap just flowers, all kinds in the background. Different colors, different heights. And maybe there's some that stand up like this. Then we can come in with some grasses, just any dark color. A path somewhere on this. I just decided that. Alizarin crimson and our browns, just glob that up on the knife, and maybe the trail kind of like goes through this meadow down that way, and we don't really see it until it pops out of some of the flowers right here. And then maybe it just goes this way. And perhaps we'll have some rocks and path, because that seems about right. Some rocks, just shimmy them out. I'm going to add in some of our other dark colors that we had over here. And maybe path, maybe we'll have a couple rocks out here too. Just throw them in. Then we can take our palette knife and some titanium white. We can mix that with our browns and some yellow ochre maybe. Just gonna pop on some color to these. We can always change it up a little bit later, but we're gonna come over the top in some ways with some grasses and flowers and stuff like that. So we'll take our fan brush and go into some crimson, sap green, and phthalo blue, and we'll just tap some lower grasses here first. And we can just kind of cut off the rocks wherever you want them, whatever you're seeing. That's what's the right way to do it. All right, now that we have a good bit of dark, we can come back in here and put in some more lights if we'd like to. I want to kind of reestablish this path out here and really give it a nice pop. As if the sun is really shining on this meadow here. More so than it is out here in this kind of blue area we have. But out in the front here, the sun is shining. There's going to be flowers, and they're just saying their last goodbye to the sun for the day, high up on this alpine meadow. Just adding in a few more pops of highlights and rocks and All right, let's start working on this area here. Let's do some more dark strands here, just to kind of an in-between. Get a nice dark color and start pulling up some long grasses. Let's work on this area right here as well. We can just take the fan brush and we'll go into some titanium white, sap green. Let's grab a touch of midnight black, just a tiny little bit. Just kind of changes the green and I really like it. Tap in a little bit of some green grass here. Maybe just a tiny bit right out in front of this rock, and then we can really set that down in there. Grab a little bit of that again. Same color right here. And we can get the 2-inch brush and just soften this a little bit together. Now, a little bit more right over here. And we'll kind of work this down. Just use your colors to vary the contrast in and around here. And you can start building little areas. Now, let's get some dark right here. Let's get some light now and do some of those. Doesn't matter. Just put them in. has to be thin in order for this to work though. Maybe over here. Now, we will start building some colors on these flowers. First, let's do, I really like up in the mountains and pretty much any of the Rocky Mountains, you'll see the, I think it's called Indian paintbrush. That's what I've always called it. It's a really beautiful plant that you can use for pigments as well, and it was used to paint. And so we're just going to pick out some, and we'll just kind of dance in. They kind of grow in like little bundles, so you'll just see them kind of bundled up. We're just going to use the bright red and alizarin crimson and just put in as many or as few as you want. Some farther away, maybe some really close to the ground, some further out here. Don't forget some up front. They like to grow kind of by the rocks sometimes. And if you have trouble getting the color to show, just add a tiny bit of titanium white to it, and that usually does the trick. I saw some of these on a hike just yesterday. It's kind of more springtime, but when you're high up in the mountains, springtime down up high where the snow is still melting happens really late in the year. So it's kind of summertime, but it looks like some of the same flowers that you might see a tiny bit lower, but they're usually going to be some distinguishing flowers as you get higher, and there'll definitely be less of other things. Let's just keep working away at adding some flowers. We're just working with the red right now. Sometimes I have to thin the paint down just a tiny bit to get it to cooperate. You get to adding so much paint onto the brush, and you're picking up more paint from the canvas when you do this. It's just the way it goes. So if you don't get things to stick, just thin it out, or just, work with the texture a little bit, and it'll start happening again for you really quick. Now, let's get that cleaned off. We'll go into a little bit of a dark green here. Nice and dark, thin. And we'll just throw a few dark lines under these, just in case we don't have any. We really want to make sure that there's a couple. Make sure to reload if you're starting to pick up too much of the other colors and not dropping your dark color. Okay, now let's move into maybe some yellows. Let's do liquid white and a little bit of Indian yellow and yellow ochre. Indian yellow and yellow ochre. And for this, we'll do kind of like these background ones we did over here. We'll see how many we can get. We might just use the fan brush. Medium thickness. And we'll kind of just pick out an area and we want to push up. They have kind of these, I don't know what you would call them. They're like little bells all attached to one strand. I'm not really that great at flower names. I just know that they're there. So we'll just kind of push some up. We want there to be a few that have a little bit of more detail to them, so we can then add in some that have less and they'll all make sense. Just always focus the way that you're pushing your point, kind of pushing up with this. Focus it back, the bottom down towards your petal. Grass. You know, keep it at the same direction. I'm doing a terrible job of giving you an idea of what the right thing to do here is, but we just want to keep the direction of where you're pushing away kind of to fall back into the center of the flower. I'm going to try and lighten this up with a little bit of titanium white. I just want a bright yellow. And we'll do a few more of these, kind of find some areas where they will stand out, you know. Maybe somewhere over here too. Now let's get some more titanium white into that. And we'll do some slightly lighter ones. I got just a tiny bit of liquid white into my paint. gonna just put some far away over here by these rocks. Now we can just bounce around and do as much or as little as we want. I just like to kind of ease into it and then do a few, and we can always go back and do some more. Right now I want to do some blue. Let's pick up some liquid white. I want a nice purplish blue here. Maybe we'll just push up a few, kind of similar to these yellow ones. We need a little bit more white in this. Okay, I want to connect just a few more areas. Just throw in a few more dark strands to connect some of these flowers. Now we're going to pick up the fan brush, which whichever one has the least amount of paint on it. Both of mine are pretty dirty. And I'm going to go into my titanium white and bright yellow. This is just the Indian yellow. Kind of open it up on the bristles there. And we're going to pop in a few shimmers. Maybe a few more of those yellow flowers. You can just tap on the top of the brush and they kind of just come right off. Just add a few here and there. Maybe we'll do a little bit of blue. Maybe thin that down just a touch. It was pretty thick there. You want like a medium texture blue, and we can just pick out a few more. Areas of this blue that we want. I love the like bluebell kind of flowers. There's a couple other kinds. Well, I don't remember all the names, like I said. But there's some purpley blue flowers that kind of grow in little different kinds of bundles that are up here in the mountains. They're there. You just have to go find them. All right, now I'm gonna pop on just my last little bit of highlight here. Just cleaned out the brush a tiny bit, and we'll get some yellows and some sap green. We're going for a nice bright pop of color here, and we're gonna just set this path right down in with this, wherever it needs a little bit of an adjustment. You just convince it. Maybe we'll have some nice grass here. Maybe this comes down. And maybe we need to put just a few more touches of color up in here. We can even add tiny bits of our blue. And some of our red. And we'll finish it off with just some nice little glistens of color. The last thing is I'm going to come in with like a really bright white, almost white, and we'll put in a few. Just whatever, I don't know. They could just be some, could be yarrow, I guess. A nice white flower on the top. They grow pretty tall, so. Then we can come back in with our dark. I'm just gonna scrape in a few more sticks and twigs back here. There might be some in this meadow. Just a tiny bit of Indian yellow and white, liquid white. There we go. Full moon over the meadow. I love it. I'm going to be done with that and sign it. Feel free to spend time doing whatever more you would like to do. I had a lot of fun painting this, and I want to just leave it the way it is. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. I've been really feeling those summer vibes, and I'm just looking forward to getting up onto the mountains to see these high alpine meadows. They just start to pop once all of the snow melts, and we're really getting close. So I was just kind of putting myself in the mood for what's to come. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought about this painting, and be sure to send me an email, Kaylee@KayleeRakowski.com. Send me an email of your painting if you decide to paint along, or if you were inspired by this painting and you painted something completely different. I would love to see that. Send me an email and we'll chat. That's all for me today. Thank you for joining me again for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. We'll see you next week at 5 o'clock. Smile and be happy, friends.